Shout out to the learners from Zibokwana High School, Aluma Bovu, Qaqamba Ndobeni, Hlela Myolwa, Achumile Benzile, Aphiwe Majova, Athabile Duba, Anilisiwe Mayaba. You guys are seen in the studio. Continue, guys. Hello viewers, my name is Kawaike Ngalongulu from Zomhle High School and I am a grade 12 teacher. Welcome to the Eastern Cape Department of Education broadcast studio. Today's lesson is about settlement geography as well as what is expected of you in the upcoming June examination. Settlement geography focuses on the study of humans, their patterns, their relationships to the surrounding environment, as well as the study of the human settlement. The June examination paper guidelines are as follows: 3-hour question paper that is out of 150 marks. The paper is going to consist of 2 sections, Section A and Section B. Section A is going to have 3 questions. Question 1, climate and weather. Question 2, geomorphology. Question 3, settlement geography. Each of these questions will be out of 40. And then we go to Section B. Section B will only have 1 question, and that is question 4. Question 4 is on geography, is on map skills as well as geography skills and techniques. Now, on your map skills and calculations, on the map skills and calculations will be 10 marks, interpretation will be 12 marks, GIS is going to be 8 marks to make the 30. The calculations, please grade 12s, go through all the calculations that you've done throughout the year. And then the interpretation, for you to be able to interpret the map, you must understand the colors of the map. You must understand the symbols of the map. How are you going to understand the colors of the map? When you're looking on the topographical map, to be specific, the red, the black, and the gray, they represent for you the infrastructure and they relate more to settlement geography. And then when you look on blue as well as brown, blue represents the drainage. It is your dams, your rivers, the lakes, perennial rivers, reservoir, water tower. Now, the drainage or the color blue relates more to geomorphology, because you'll remember that in geomorphology we are studying more on the different types of rivers as well as the study of the river from the upper course to the lower course. So the blue that you have there on the map relates more to geomorphology. And then we look on green as well as brown. Still, the green and the brown, they relate to climatology. All right. Section B is only going to have 1 question, and that question is question 4. Question 4 is map skills, interpretation, and GIS. Map skills and calculations will be 12 marks, interpretation will be 12 marks, and then GIS will be 8 to make up the 30. Now, the map skills and calculations of 10 marks, it is you knowing how to make the calculations as well as knowing the map skills. For example, which map is larger than the other, what are the lines of latitude, what are the lines of longitude. And then for you to be able to answer the questions of interpretation, you must be able to know what each color on the map stands for and what each symbol on the map stands for. For example, red, black, and gray, they represent the infrastructure and they relate more to settlement geography. And then we have blue. Blue represents the drainage, meaning your types of rivers, the dams, the reservoir, the water towers. They relate more to geomorphology, because you'll remember that in geomorphology, we're doing the different types of the rivers, the river profiling from the upper course to the lower course. And then green, it is the natural vegetation and the crops. Natural vegetation and the crops will relate more to the climate and weather. Just it's a glimpse, grade 12, of what is expected of you in interpretation. At the same time, on the interpretation, it is the integration of your knowledge of the content together with your knowledge of how you interpret the map. What I always say to my learners, when you're looking on the topographical map, a topographical map is like you are watching a Korean drama series. You do not understand the spoken language, and for you to understand the language that is spoken in a Korean drama series, you have to turn on the subtitles. Same applies to the topographical map. We do not understand the symbols of the map until we look at the bottom of the map, which is your reference. Now it means we've done what? We've turned on the subtitles so that we can better understand the spoken language of the map. And then we move from the question 4, we go to question 3, settlement geography. Settlement geography has low order, middle order, as well as high order questions. The low order questions will be assessed, for example, using the multiple choice questions. You match column A with column B, or maybe you are given a diagram and you are given phrases whereby you have to provide if this phrase is explaining letter B, letter G, letter H, depending on the annotation of the diagram. So the low order questions are going to be your 1 times 1 question as well as your 1 times 2. The 1 times 2, it is the definition of concepts. Now listen, grade 12. When you are defining a concept, you define a concept as it is and not how it was explained to you. Let me make an example. To my learners, I always say, when we are doing the 3 pillars of land reform, we have land redistribution, restitution, and tenure reform. Let me take one. And I'll tell them that land restitution, we first break the word restitution. Restitution means to restore something that was lost or stolen back to its proper owner. And then we go to explain the concept of land restitution. Land restitution, it is when people who were forcefully removed from their pieces of land are given back the pieces of land. It's either they are given money or they are going to be given back their pieces of land. Now here's where the confusion starts. A learner wanting to define land restitution by defining restitution only, by just stating that it's when something that was lost or stolen, it's brought back to its proper own. No, when we want the concept, we want you to explain land restitution. So there are many other concepts whereby we break the concept and then we go to it to explain it formally. So you don't write how you understand it, you don't write how it was explained to you, you write it as it is. So the low order questions, it is your 1 times 1 and your 1 times 2. And then we go to the middle order questions. They are your 2 times 2 questions. Now for the high order questions are your 6 times 2 and the 4 times 2. However, there is a mistake here. It's not 6 times 2. Actually, it's 3 times 2. For the high order questions, you need to take note of the action verbs such as account, explain, justify, and suggest. These action verbs require you to write in full sentences. For example, when you are asked to account, you are asked to give reasons to. When you are asked to explain, you give us a thorough explanation of the phenomena or the thorough explanation of the content. When you are asked to suggest, you are going to advise or give suggestions as to how this can be handled, especially in settlement geography. They can say maybe suggest strategies that can be adopted by government to bring people back into the rural areas. Now you're going to suggest, what do you think that the government can do? You give an advice to the government. And then number 2, these types of questions, there is a marking scheme that is being employed. The marking scheme that is being employed, it is the factor and the qualifier. This means that simply stating the fact alone is not enough or it is not sufficient. You need to provide a qualifier, explain why or how that fact is relevant. So as I was saying, examples of the factor and a qualifier. For the factor and the qualifier, we said stating the fact alone is not sufficient. You need to qualify the fact. You need to give us a reason why or how is this fact relevant. In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, explain why the CBD is no longer attractive as a location for many businesses. The answer is traffic congestion. Traffic congestion is a fact. The CBD is no longer attractive for many businesses because of a traffic congestion. Traffic congestion limits people from reaching the CBD. If customers can't reach the CBD, it means then there is no business in the CBD, and therefore businesses do not want to go and open in the CBD. However, grade 12, you don't just say traffic congestion. You say traffic congestion, how or why does it limit a business for businesses? It is because traffic congestion forces consumers to shop elsewhere and decrease business. Now you've qualified how the traffic congestion is relevant. For the high order questions or for the paragraph questions, your answer must not be written in a point form, or it must not be vague. By vague, we mean it something that is not clearly stated, described, or explained. So your answers must be in full sentences. You must give a full explanation. Analytical and critical thinking skills are required. Now, it goes back to what I said. You provide the factor and the qualifier. You don't just say traffic congestion. That answer is vague. It is not clearly stated. It does not describe or it does not explain how traffic congestion is influencing the businesses. And then the demands for the paragraph questions, we have the action verbs. The action verbs that require you to remember the content is when you are asked you to define, when you are asked you to name, to describe, or to give, identify, and then list. And then we have action verbs that require you to understand the content, whereby you are asked you to summarize, to classify, to compare, to contrast, relate, or to explain. For example, let's say you are asked to explain the processes that are involved in the formation of a waterfall. You can't just explain the formation of a waterfall without you understanding the formation of the waterfall. And then for the adjectives, you'll notice that geography questions are not general. They do not just say state the factors. They will say to you what are the social factors, economic factors, as well as environmental, physical, natural factors. What I always say then to my learners is, for the social factors, you must always ask yourself, what is going to happen to me, my family, as well as the community? Let's take an example there in climate and weather, where you are asked what are the negative impacts of the heavy rainfall on the society. Okay, what are the negative impacts of a heavy rainfall on social? And then you ask yourself, as a result of the heavy rainfall, what is going to happen to you and your family? For the economic factors now, we are looking on businesses, the trading of the country, the GDP of the country, businesses, jobs, trading of the country, as well as the GDP. And then we go to the environmental. Now you ask yourself, what is going to happen to everything that is not human-made? What is going to happen to the dams and the rivers, to the wild animals, to the natural vegetation? The misconception that learners like to make, it's whereby they will talk about crops under environmental, physical, and natural. Crops belong to the economy because crops, we sell them, so they are involved in everything that has money. And then again, the other misconception, it's whereby learners mention livestock in environmental, physical, or natural. Livestock falls again under economy because we can sell livestock. So under the environmental, physical, natural, we are only talking about the natural vegetation as well as the wild animals, the habitats of these animals, as well as the dams and the rivers. The integration of settlement geography in map work. Settlement geography will not be assessed only in question 3 in the upcoming examination. It will be assessed in question 4 as well, where you will be expected to interpret the map using the content of settlement geography. Maps are used to analyze land uses, assess transportation needs, as well as design urban areas. For example, these are our street patterns. This is the identification of the street patterns. On the identification of your street pattern, we have the gridiron, radial, irregular, and then we have the satellite images of the street patterns. Now, how do you see them on the map? This is how they are going to appear on the map, whereby we have the gridiron, the radial, as well as irregular. So whatever you know about your content of settlement geography, you must be able to apply it in the map context. For example, let's say you are given a settlement, and then this settlement is built close to a water source, and then you are asked what type of a settlement is this. Obviously, if the settlement is built close to the source of water, it is a wet point settlement. It means that area is experiencing water shortages and everyone wants to build close to the river or close to the water source. The other example can be when you are integrating your content to the map, whereby you are given a contour lines close to each other and contour lines far apart from each other, and then there is a river that is running on top of those contour lines, and then you are asked at what course of a river is this part of this river that is represented on the map. What you're going to look for, it is the closeness of the contour lines. If the contour lines are close to each other, they represent a steep gradient, and we all know that the upper the course of the river, the steeper the gradient. The lower the course of the river, the gentler the gradient. So if the contour lines are far apart, we are now looking at the lower course. If the contour lines are close to each other, we are now looking at the upper course. And then same applies again. We are in the integration of your map skills together with your content. This is a central place town. This is a central place town. How do we see that Ceres is a central place town? It is because it is surrounded by rural areas. Now, how do you see that these are rural areas in this area? Where is the laser? These are rural areas. How do we see that these are rural areas and this is an urban center or it is a central place? This one is a rural area because they are only practicing one economic activity, and that is agriculture. How do we see that they are practicing agriculture? It is because this area right here is dominated by cultivated lands. So that surely for us represents farming of which is practiced in rural areas. So Ceres then is a central place because it provides goods and services to the surrounding rural areas. And then Cape Town, it is a break of bulk point, or a break of bulk city or town. How do we see? Because this area right here is the harbor, meaning the mode of transport is going to change from the sea transport to the road transport. We all know that the break of bulk, it's when there is going to be a change in transport from a sea transport to a road transport. So can you see that if you do not know your content of settlement geography, you won't be able to interpret the map. That is why it is important for you learners to understand the content and at the same time to understand the symbols of the map as well as how to integrate the settlement geography content to the map work content. So the June examination will be written on the 20th of June 2025. The June examination for geography will be written on the 20th of June. It is a morning paper. As I've said that it is a 3-hour paper out of 150. Section A and Section B. To the learners that are not doing physical sciences as well as accounting as well as economics, they have 7 days for them to prepare for the geography examination. When I say 7 days, it means in that period of 7 days, there is no other subject that you are writing. You are only waiting for you to write geography. So it means you have plenty of time for you to revise. And when you are revising grade 12, don't only focus on studying the notes. Make sure that you download previous question papers. You can know the content of geography, but if you do not know how the content is going to be assessed or you're not familiar with the structure of questioning, Okay, it's important for you guys to download previous question papers so that you are familiar with the way of questioning and not just know the content only. We've come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions on the comments. Don't forget to leave the name of your school so we give you a shout out. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. See you on our next lesson. Bye, y'all.